We're going to move over next to a smaller, simpler piece, and we'll let you tell us a little bit about what we're going to see here.
Well, Beatrice Wood was probably one of the great treasures of this area. She lived and died in Ojai. I think she died at 105, plus or minus a little bit of time. She was one of the world's great ceramists, and she had a phenomenal flair for life. Like Georgia O'Keeffe, she loved men. And I think my son, when he was very young, went over to visit with him, and I was afraid that we would lose our son, because Beatrice, even at the age of 90, liked young boys. So I look at this piece, and I say, first of all, technically it's a great piece because of its glaze, and because of its form, and because of the way it delicately is put together, and then the way that she adhered pieces to it after the fact, and began to sculpt a piece that would normally be a bowl, and it becomes much more than that. You want to lift it, you want to look at the reflections, the light is very important to it. And in ceramics, for years, ceramics were thought of as a craft. And then there became important sculptors and ceramicists that we began to view, Kenny Price and Beatrice, and et cetera. And they began to become, in the mind of a lot of people, important artists, not just craftspeople. This piece represents something that is way beyond a craft in my mind, and Beatrice Wood was not only a treasure, but a very, very fine artist.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to move from one vessel to another over here, a very different kind of vessel. This one is whimsical, I would say.
Well, you know, I want to cry a little bit when I look at this piece, because Levine was a ceramicist, again, who we had in our collection 25 years ago. And I saw this piece in the last 3 or 4 years, but she passed away just recently. And her work always was finished like it was leather. Now this is ceramic, it's clay. And the piece itself represents a lot: the cup, a legging, a piece that is sewn or zipped, a piece that may not be clay but is clay. And so that really, to me, when an artist can take a medium and change it so that your perception of what it is different than what it really is, then that artist begins to really express something that is magic. And there are artists today like Andy Goldsworthy, James Turrell, that works in light, that can change an environment totally by their work. And I think that she can do that with clay. So this piece was a very important piece to us, not only because of a relationship 25 years ago, but because it really makes something out of something that you don't expect. Mm-hmm. And I think that good art does that.
And that's clearly one of the ties that connect throughout the collection. We're going to look at something else that is going to challenge our expectations.
This is Melanie Pullen, and she's a young artist in her 20s. And she had her first major show within the last year, and she's publishing her first book. Now this series of photographs is about she's trying to beautify homicide. Now that's a very strange thing. This is called, her series of work here was called Fashion Homicide, or Homicide Fashion. And what she took out of the LAPD's records was actually homicides or murders that were recorded by the police photographers, and then she reenacted them and put them into art in her mind. Now here she has a female in a barrel but wearing the shoes of Dorothy, the red shoes. And that piece does more than just talk about who's in the barrel. It really talks about composition and direction that's set by the light, by the direction of the feet, by the intensity of the composition towards the center of the piece, and the fact that there's something going on that you really don't quite get. But it was in a series that really had to do with not trying to glorify death, but at the same time trying to put another face on the way we look at homicide and all the things that we see in the newspaper every day. And she did a whole series of very important work of women hanging that were dressed to the tens. And so, can you beautify death, and how brutal is the act of killing somebody? And is that barrel filled with a human being, or is it a piece of art? Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I don't have them all.
Well, and the colors are just striking on this. I mean, we've got this spring or summer grass out of control, these pale, pale legs and then the ruby red slippers against the brown of the barrel. Another piece that asks us to do something with a little bit more humor involved. Now, tell us about the title of the piece, because it works interestingly with what we see.
Well, there's two titles to this piece. One is the one that's written as, "What is life and how shall we live it?" Well, I don't know if any of us have that answer, but we are all nerds. When I walked into the gallery, this was in an architectural gallery with pieces that were much different than this. A lot of them were figurative and such, but this one piece really appealed to me because of the composition, particularly, and also, I think from time to time we are all nerds. Okay, so to me, it let me wake up and look at the piece and think about who should I be and what am I? But at the same time, there are a lot of nerds on this world that are moving us forward at kind of whip-neck speed. But the composition with the road coming in and disappearing on the horizon line like that talks about that we're all on a path moving someplace. And that most art, particularly in the landscape art, is taking you into a composition through a road, through a path, through a line, to a point that may be horizon or the mountain. Here she's mixed the landscape along with stop. Stop and think about where you are and who you are, and are we all nerds? Mm-hmm. You know, I can get political right now, and I'm not going to, but I would say that this piece can take you in a lot of places, and it's painted in a very interesting way, particularly the elements of the sky. But the composition, once again, takes you to horizon, and you can reference paintings by Hockney and Avery and other great artists that really deal with, well, also Ed Ruscha, where the path is a very important part of the work to take you to another destination. And hopefully the destination is your own mind and imagination. Mm-hmm.
So this initial conceit, it stops and it makes us smile, but then you're saying there's a lot more to it based on the composition of the painting.
But see, that's true in all art. Mm-hmm. It takes you way beyond where you were before you saw it. If you can get to a point where when you look at a piece of art, your imagination takes you way beyond where you were when you first saw it, it's achieved its goal, and you as an individual have grown.
And I know that the place of art in our lives is something that you're really dedicated to, and you're thinking about all the time.
I started collecting with my late wife when I was at USC in the School of Architecture in the 50s. And I would go to the MFA sales and for $10 buy what I thought was a great painting. And our house, or apartment at that time, was filled with $10 paintings. So we lived with art from the very beginning. And then we had an early film on Alexander Calder that showed him making mobiles on the beach. And so I was 20-something, I went out and bought a Calder, $50 a month, that became the first important piece as far as history in our collection. And from there, we never stopped.
Mm-hmm. You would encourage people then not to be put off by price, that you can go out and find things that are affordable to you.
I think that is true. I think any artist who finds a person who loves their work will work with you in letting you achieve your desire to own one of their pieces. It takes 10 years to pay it off. I don't know. It's different people, different artists. But I think they love the idea that somebody is acknowledging their work. And I think that those people that collect art have a passion for life that's way beyond the written word and way beyond day-to-day communication that we have with each other. It takes them to another place. And I really would encourage everybody to look at art, whether it's representational or abstract, and try to make that a part of their lives so that they can go on these journeys. We all need a little bit of relief.
Well, let's look at another piece that is going to take a little bit of explanation. It's an untitled piece. What is this?
Well, Louise Bourgeois is probably one of the outstanding living artists. And once again, she's a much older woman now. And she works in everything from paper to sculpture to a bronze like this. And the bronze really this bronze talks a lot about a claw, or to me anyway, a form that comes from maybe prehistoric, maybe current life, but that is trying to grab hold of a surface. Now, when you start looking at that and you start saying, is it going to move? Is it really going to grab hold of that surface? As you walk around it, does it become something that it's not? And what does it do as a piece of structure as it sits on its pedestal? Well, I'm not sure I have all those answers. I know that they make me ask the questions. And that's why I enjoy this piece and many others that you see in the show and others we have, because I'm not quite sure that I can tell you exactly what that is, nor do I really want to know what it is. But it will take me in different places each time I look at it.
Well, we've got a few more pieces left to look at. The next one that we have over here is another painting that also includes text. It's called Steel Bridge.
Deborah or Paulo, this piece has traveled a lot in museum shows. It's been in Oakland, it's been in Palm Springs, and it's been in other museum shows. And so this is a piece that, particularly today, is an important piece to me because the verbiage on it is one thing, and artists that have used narrative, like Ed Ruscha, are important in my mind because they're able to express something that is in verbiage, a part of something greater, which is the painting. Today, looking at that red cross in the center, you can do nothing but think about the tragedy which came through in Louisiana and how important that cross became in trying to save life. But not only that, it really is the core and the center of the canvas, and it had a lot to do with bridge building, the grace of simplicity. You start reading the words in this painting, tension and steel. And so it has a very strong character to it. On top of that, the way that she's made it, there's somewhat encaustic on top. The surfaces begin to diminish and go beyond the face of the canvas so that there's a lot of depth in this piece. But you keep coming back to the focal point of the canvas, which is the cross in the center, and it represents the strength of her hand, the building of something that's beyond just a flat surface, and the hand being able to make a piece which is really crafted in a way, become part of a painting, which is deep in thought, but keeps bringing you back to the surface.
Yeah, and just obliterates all the text.
That's right.
That's really important, I think. Well, we're going to look at a couple of smaller photographs over here for as we wind down. The one on the top, maybe you'd start with that one.
Well, Carrie Mee Wims is a black photographer who is nationally really recognized as somebody of importance. And this piece is a piece that talks for itself, you know, see no, hear no. And I think that if you look at the repression of the black over time and of what she's trying to say about her own people, that this becomes a very important piece because it really speaks not only the composition of the piece that you see on the wall, but it takes you way beyond trying to understand what society is and was and where we're going and have we gone far enough. And can we be heard? Can we be seen? Those are all things that, once again, I can't answer. In fact, after coming out of the county today in a planning council, I can tell you I don't know anymore. But it's something that I can go home and look at and then begin to try to get deeper into what society is all about and how I can, as an individual, maybe help. So that's what that's about in my mind.
This last piece, while it's a photograph, reminds me a little bit of the paintings of Chicago artist Laurie Hogan. I don't know if you know her work or not, but she will juxtapose classical elements with kind of contemporary things like this, a wire or something like that. What have we got here?
Well, we were lucky enough some years ago to have Ann Hamilton, this artist, live and teach here at UCSB. She is probably one of the phenomenal artists of our moment in that she's great with space. She can make a space be something totally different than what you feel when you walk into it. She usually puts herself into the pieces where she would sit still for hours within a bathtub or at a chair. And you try to understand how she's interacting with the composition. This is her head in this piece, and the playfulness of how she juxtaposed the head of the animal, the line that is the bright drawing line through the center of it, which could be neon or it could be thread or it could be anything, and how it terminates at the piece of fruit. Maybe that starts to get a little bit religious and on the ground, the fruit on the ground. But I think that Anne is one magical person, and I think that she started with these photographs in Santa Barbara, selling them in order to survive. And now she's making grand installations that are rooms and greater than rooms worldwide. But she started here in this city as a teacher at the university, trying to figure out how to live, and the photographs did that for her. So we had a chance to help a little bit in that time, so we have quite a few of her pieces.